Documentarian filmmaker Michael Donnellan, producer of Atlantica, the docu-series that we're going to be premiering at the Cosmic Summit at 9 o'clock, Saturday night, the 21st. Michael, you are in Spain, correct?
I am in Andalucía. How are you, George? Nice to see you.
I'm well, man. I am so thrilled that you're going to premiere Atlantica in the U.S. at the Cosmic Summit.
It's
It's just a
exciting.
fantastic confluence of stuff, man. The timing is good for y'all. The timing would always be good for us. This is right up our alley. And
Terrific.
we're privileged to have you. And y'all were great to reach out to us. Your friend David, who's one of your, biggest promoters and supporters, he hounded
Fantastic.
me by email for a while. And I usually don't require much hounding, and I wasn't dismissing it. I just didn't follow up. And I'm just glad a couple months ago we put it together, got together, signed some stuff because this is a premiere, folks. Okay. This is the first time people have seen this, which if you're watching some, drama movie or whatever, there's not really much of a reveal there. It's neat to go see a premiere of a piece of art, but this is a premiere of new information that has never been seen by the world concerning the location of Atlantis. So that makes it a double special premiere. And the people that are in the audience at 9 o'clock, June 21st at the Cosmic Summit, are going to be blown against the back wall by this thing. I mean, it is a fantastic documentary, and I want to share with them the nature of it. But let's learn a little bit about you first, because I think explorers are just so interesting, and it is a great privilege the gods have given me to go get on the phone with people like you around the world. Not to mention meet you. And
Well,
so,
the
tell me,
pleasure's mine as
did it
well,
start with
equally.
diving? Did it start? Yeah.
It
So tell us
started.
a little bit about your background. Where'd you grow up, and how'd you get into these things?
All right. Well, first of all, likewise, it's a pleasure, and just being able to share ideas with like-minded individuals in this extraordinary, massive junction of different fields is always thrilling. Over the last years, I've amassed a group of friends who are archaeologists, geologists, open-minded, and also travelers. And so sharing this with you and your audience is for me a great pleasure. It all started. The archaeological twist was kind of bizarre. My parents were both from the U.S. And I'm from California, but I was born and raised in Europe and spent
Okay,
many
you're from.
years. I grew up as a kid for many years in Italy and Switzerland, England. I lived in Abu Dhabi many years, and then by chance I went to university in Athens, in Greece. It was kind of a weird thing that happened. It was the American College of Greece, and my sister and I decided to go there. My father was in education; he was a director of universities, so the idea, the option of going to Dori College, the American College of Greece, sprung up, and we said sure. It was fantastic. You can imagine Athens at 18, 19 years old,
Hell
and
yeah.
it was
Yeah.
fantastic. And what am I going to study? I was doing my general ed anyway, archaeology, right? So that's what you're going to study when you're in
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Athens, and it was fantastic. I loved it. During that time had a chance to actually explore the world of archaeology in places like Creta and
Hmm.
Akrotiri and Santorini. So it
Yep.
was that was really my first opening door to the world of archaeology in that regard. And I never thought in any way that I was going to go back and become an archaeologist. I simply was in Athens. That's what I was going to study.
Right.
And then I moved to
Yeah.
California, and eventually I got a job fairly early on at 20th Century Fox. And I worked there for years, and I
Hmm.
worked there as an animator, and then worked with other studios doing animation and 3D and stuff like that. And then it developed into film making, et cetera, et cetera. And I did that for years and years and years. And about 9 years ago, I was introduced through, I still had this passion for archaeology. I was introduced to some of the guys that I work with right now in Northern England. This fantastic gentleman, Timothy Akers, And at the time, there was no indication I was going to do documentaries or anything like that. It was just interest. I was invited to join them on a trip to Fayoum, a couple hours south of Cairo, where we were
Been there,
investigating
yeah.
Hawara, the Hawara pyramid, and
Yeah.
and it was
Yep, yep, yep,
fantastic.
yep.
I went there also with Reda Abdel Halim, the
This
director
is
of the.
red meat for our audience here, Michael, right? They're not even going to want to get to Atlantis. They could get stuck on Aurora for Aurora for an hour.
Oh man, an incredible place.
Okay, keep going, man. So y'all go to Aurora.
So we go to Hawara, and with Reda
Yeah.
Abdel Halim, who's the director of the Giza Plateau, who, on
Okay.
a side note, also pointed out the existence of a second Sphinx on the Giza Plateau, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So we started on these different trips together, and it was a kind of an intro to new scanning techniques, existing scanning techniques. We're always our team is constantly using technologies of everything you can imagine, from LiDAR to multi-axis echo sounder. We use it. It just depends on the situation and the location. The
Which
following
is very evident in the film.
we really try. We make
This is a data-based.
data-based. It is data-based. It's science-based at every step of the way we've included science and academia. Anyway, one thing led to another. Nothing to do with Atlantis the first year. In fact, the word Atlantis never even sprung up. But every month I was going to a new location. One of our great discoveries is a fantastic galleon that sunk off the coast of Filey in England, called the Bonhomme Richard, which was captained by John Paul Jones. And I'm like I'm the first person with our guys to retrieve anything from the shipwreck. So my point is that within a very short time, I started to realize that what we were doing worked. Meaning we would scan an area, we'd do our due diligence, our investigation, and then if we determined it looked like there was an object in that location that matched the dimensions of so whatever it was that we were looking for, most of the time that object is there. And then one day, about a year into it, maybe about 8 months into working with the guys, Tim mentions, "Do you like southern Spain?" And I said, "Well, yes. Why?" and this is how this whole thing. He had basically been searching for a shipwreck, and in the process had found tons of different the remains of what looked like remains of structures that didn't seem to be registered in the historical record. So we started our first investigation here in February 2016. And
Okay, and that was in Cadiz.
this was this was all over Andalucía. So Andalucía, for your viewers who might have not been to Spain, is the southernmost state in the country of Spain, and it's the biggest region in southern Spain. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's a large region, something like California a little bit, only horizontal. And what we had been finding was there we go. What we've been finding were ruins spreading right the way across. Yeah, if you go to the right over there and you see Almeria, Almeria to the very far right there.
Yeah. Okay,
there you
so
go.
This is where the shipwreck was?
No. This is just to show you where we were finding ruins. If you go from Almeria all the way to the left.
Oh, ruins.
All the way to the left, you'll get to Portugal. Right, even farther down. So I live, and we were finding all these prehistoric structures that were outside of the written record scattered throughout this coastline, but focused in the region of Cadiz, right? Which is right in the middle of your screen. You've got Gibraltar. Now, the province of Cadiz, just to give you an idea, and that's basically where I live. I go a little north of that. A little north of that. Cadiz is 20 minutes from me. I live right there where it says Sanlúcar de Chipiona, on the edge right there. You just missed it, but it's right there.
That's right next to the inland sea, right?
Exactly.
The former inland sea.
Exactly. So, and just to give you an idea, if you zoom out a little bit, or the other way, the province, Cadiz is not only a capital city, it's the capital city of the province of Cadiz, which is one of the many provinces within the state of Andalucía. And Gibraltar is also within, even though it belongs to England, is also within the confines of what has always been the province of Cadiz. So, this is where our story with Plato begins. And if you follow, well, just to quickly go through it, because I'm sure your viewers are more than knowledgeable on this, but I'll just sort of go through it quickly. Plato wrote...
No, please summarize and in detail.
Plato wrote two texts on that mention this incredibly ancient civilization called Atlantis, and what he said about it within these two texts, the Timaeus and the Critias, even though combined they're only about 50 pages, is extraordinary. It really, within a short amount of text, he puts together an incredible series of details about this ancient, and like what you're scrolling through right now, it all starts off. These writings in that time were referred to as dialogues. And it kind of reads a little bit like a movie script, where you have Critias, who's the name of a person, saying something, and then you have Timaeus responding, and then you have... So it's written in the form a little bit of a movie script. And in these dialogues, he begins by narrating this incredible story that his great ancestor by the name of Solon, who was a revered individual in ancient Greece. In fact, he was Solon was a very respected man. He wrote many of the laws of Athens in ancient times. So this man Solon was an extremely well-reputed individual. And when Solon, this is Plato telling the story that Critias is telling. So it's sort of a narrative of what has been passed down through the generations. He says that Solon, at 10 years of age, had gone to visit the ancient priests of Egypt in the region known as the ancient priests of Sais, which still exists today, by the way. And we have to keep in mind that 2,400 years ago, when he was writing this, Egypt was quite a different place. And as you know, the Greeks revered the ancient Egyptians in the same way that later on the Romans revered the Greeks. And so this young Solon had visited these priests of Egypt who told him this bizarre story. They said to him, you Greeks are all like children. You don't know anything about your past. And he basically tells this young boy Solon that the Greeks had a much more ancient ancestry, a people who came from outside of the Straits of Heracles, in the region the Greeks recognized as Gades. That is known as the province of Cadiz, given its Greek name 2,400 years ago. And he starts to tell you this crazy story. And in so much detail, he says that past the straits, one would have to go through the columns of Heracles, or Hercules, into the region known as Cádiz, and then he begins to describe that this was a vast empire that ruled over the majority of the Mediterranean. But what he was talking about here was the capital, if you will, the capital of this great empire. And in the province of Cádiz, and then he begins to describe it. There was an inland sea, a narrow entrance to an inland sea, which was originally called el Mar Tartésico, el Golfo Tartésico, which is, if you zoom out and you go north, Parque Nacional de Doñana, you see that? That whole area there, that whole area, and you saw it in my documentary series, that whole area was water.
Yeah.
And and he describes
that's well accepted by the mainstream. I mean, that's not a controversial claim.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
That is a fact.
Yeah.
In fact,
So there was an inland sea, just as described by Plato.
there was an inland sea. And then he begins to describe this, what the people were like. He describes what kind of animals were there. He describes the horses, the bulls of Atlantis, and strangely, the elephants of Atlantis. I'm happy you brought that picture up of the birds, because the interesting thing about the national park is that it really is still, to certain times during the year, it still floods. So it still becomes an inland sea.
Yeah.
But in the time we're talking about, which is 10,000, 11,000 years ago, it would have been actual navigable water. And, well, long story short,
I spent 30 years in the wetland business. So that's a beautiful wetland. You could see the same thing in North Carolina. Yeah,
it's absolutely gorgeous.
So it's not an inland
gorgeous.
Sea, but it remains a wetland, which is a progression of, accumulation of sediment, et cetera.
Exactly. Spot on. And well, long story short, it says a lot of details, which I'll get into later. But then he describes, most importantly, the capital city, describing it as made up of parts of land, parts of water, which were concentric one to the other, separating them with canals. So in other words, this is where we got this image of the city being made up of concentric circular rings, in a sense. He also describes it as having had a sort of an acropolis area with springs of warm and cold water, and with a building dedicated to Clito and Poseidon. And he gives you the measurements. He gives you a stadium by half a stadium, which is massive. If you take into account the largest Greek temple, the temple of Apollo Didymer in Miletus, that's only half the size, right? So this temple of Poseidon was effectively about 184 meters long by 92 meters in width. And anyway, then he gets into, I feel like I'm rambling, but there's so much to say about it. But
no, not at all. Certainly not for this audience.
He essentially tells you in an incredible level of detail, which, by the way, all coincides with this location, about this ancient place. So what essentially had happened was Tim had been looking for the Santísima Trinidad, which is a shipwreck, and he started to find something else. And the more time he spent looking, the more he found. And this is how we started our trips over here. And right from the beginning, we were discovering you make about a 15% error rate along the way. There are sometimes, it's part of investigating. There's sometimes you show up and you get excited and you think and then it turns out it's something else. But the rest of the time, we were finding things that were absolutely real, absolutely genuine, new, and we cross-referenced everything with geologists, archaeologists, everything, historians, everything you can imagine. And And basically what you got a chance to have a look at is a fraction of the whole project. We
Yeah.
have a bunch more episodes
Yeah,
on the
and
way.
that was my sense. This is obviously a production in work, folks. Now it's very, very highly produced. They've got all the film, but they can put it together pretty much any way that you want to at this point, right? As you're premiering, right?
Exactly.
And then you could get marketed or distributed for a certain number of episodes. So what I was privileged to watch was 3 draft episodes, if you will, and about 45 minutes each. But tell us, I wasn't entirely clear unless I talked to Steph. Tell us how what I watched recently, those 3 roughly 45-minute episodes, that's not what we're going to see at the Cosmic Summit. Tell us what we'll see at the summit and how you're handling that content.
I can't expect people to sit through 3 full episodes or 6, but what we're
That's right.
showing, we'll show
I think they would, but yeah.
we're showing a 1 hour condensed version, which it has the juicy parts in it, really, and they'll be able to really have an idea of what we've found so far. Originally, it was designed to be a 6 episode series. What had happened was we didn't find the submerged city until 2022, which is only a couple years ago. And when we found that, and when we scanned it, and you saw the scans, and I flipped out when we saw the scans,
Oh yeah.
because the audience won't know this because they haven't seen it, but just so they know, a couple years ago we had detected some structures under the water after meticulous scanning and research, and we started to dive there with our dive team who'd already been there years before, didn't know what it was. Great guys, and they said to me, "Hey man, we came across this place. We don't know what it is. It's really kind of mysterious." And so we ended up, there they are on the right. We ended up diving hundreds of times there, and every single time, just so your audience knows, I've dived everywhere in the world, all over the world, my whole life. This place is particularly difficult to dive for the poor visibility and the currents. But it's also the thing that's kept the place rather secret. So the idea originally was to do 6 episodes, but when we found this and when we saw that the scan revealed a circular concentric structure, walled structures at an immense size, we realized right away that this was something massively important. So I decided to do 3 episodes first. We're going to do 3 more and then another 3, which expand on everything. So this was funny, actually. This is a very old, I forgot I still had that up there. That was a very old,
Yeah, no, that's what happens with websites, man. But it looks good.
it was a very old set of feedback that we got from people that we showed it to. But that version that we showed it to was like
Yeah.
7 years ago.
Yeah.
They haven't seen anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so those I have to take those testimonials
well, that was fellow
down.
speaker. Well, one was from J.J. Ainsworth, who's going to
Very
be speaking at the
sweet.
summit.
Yeah,
That just
and
caught my eye.
her husband, nice
Yeah.
people. They're very nice people. And I think her husband,
Yeah. And Hugh Newman will be there too.
he does a lot of stuff on
Yeah.
Dolmen, which is a massive part of our 4th episode. In fact, I just we have a wonderful episode on prehistoric megalithism throughout Iberia, because there are 35,000 dolmens on the planet, and the majority and the oldest are concentrated here on the southeastern Iberian Peninsula. It's very interesting.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
no,
right.
it's
Tell
funny.
us about the elephants real quick.
The elephants. Oh, did I pull on this? Can you still hear me? Yeah. The elephants.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a very interesting thing about Plato discusses in particular four animals of Atlantis. He talks about the horse, and the Andalucian horse is the oldest, the Andalucian caballo marismeño, which comes from the Coto, Doñana, the national park, is the oldest breed of horse in the world, peculiar. The vaca marismeña, which is the bull, the bovine breed that comes from also from the Coto, is the oldest bull in the world. Now, a lot of people, when they talk about Greek mythology, they assume that the majority of it is taking place in Greece. But a huge component of Greek mythology originates here. So when Hercules goes on his great quests to take on these bulls, it was in Iberia. That's what's interesting. Iberia being Spain and Portugal. And then he talks about the elephant. And I'll get back to that in a second. The fourth animal he talks about, he says that the honey was particularly wonderful. And we have the best honey that I have ever tasted right here in Andalucía, in the Sierra.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So back to the elephant. This is a curious thing. There was, up until Roman times, there was, and Phoenician times, there was commerce of ivory. There was trade in ivory in this area, in Sevilla and Córdoba. What that means, but the ivory wasn't just from one type of animal. It included the Asian elephant, which means that there was, and this is this kind of commerce has been dated back to prehistoric times in Andalucía, which shows that there was commerce in prehistoric times between the Eastern Mediterranean and the Western Mediterranean. So that's another clue. And they found fossilized footprints of elephants in the Doñana National Park. So all of these things tell you. I'm going to say one other thing too, which is important. There's always been 200 different opinions given as to where Atlantis might have been. Some of them are very colorful and exciting. And by the way, although the first 3 episodes discuss what we call the capital city, so word for word what Plato says, our following episodes expand throughout the Mediterranean and also to the rest of the world. My point being that if there's anything I've learned from this whole thing, it's that humankind being trade, commerce, music, laws, writing, science, things that we consider contributors to humanity, to our culture, human culture, has existed very, very, very long time. And so when people find things, in remote, far places that are from this same era, I don't doubt it at all. In fact, I know it to be true. But what we're discussing here is not something exciting somewhere else. We're talking about just exactly what Plato said and what we have here. So it's very fascinating. It's very fascinating.
Michael, it is absolutely fascinating, and I know that the people who are listening in on this are thrilled because that's our audience. I think it's also compelling to me, Michael, that it's not a very dramatic. It's not as dramatic as some speculative sites of Atlantis, and I do not mean to knock them because I would be alienating some significant part of the Cosmic Summit audience if I pick a side on this, but I will a little bit. If you say it's the Azores, or you say, it's in North Africa, both of those come with extremely dramatic geological changes. Wiped away by a giant North African sweeping tidal wave, or the entire Azores sunk in gigantic islands, which again, there's good reason to believe that's possible. It certainly, it may have been Atlantean outposts that far out, right? From the city you say. So don't mean to completely rule that out, but it requires a lot of geological drama when
Sure.
all that you require is the sea level rising. Now, it would have been a dramatic day. Believe me, I'm a catastrophist. but how deep is your city? How deep is your city?
Our structure is at 5 kilometers from the coast at 65 feet of depth, which geologically this coastline has been this coastline. Now, keep in mind, we from the scans and from our research and from the film that you saw, there's also to be considered a rather large amount of sediment on top. Did you notice how the canals are filled in with sediment? So the question is, how much sediment is actually on top? 10 more meters? 7 more meters? We don't know. Meaning on top of that 65 feet, we could probably add comfortably another 30 feet to get to what might have originally been the depth. Now, I want to get back to a very important subject, which you talked about, which is the Azores and the Canary Islands and North Africa. Now, we have to keep in mind that it's funny because I'll give you an example. I live in Cadiz, in the province of Cadiz. Right next to us is the province of Huelva, and I can basically see Huelva from my house. And for me, being an American, it was all part of the same grand, wonderful thing. But like a football team, people from Huelva go, no, Atlantis was here. People from Cadiz they say, no, it was in Cadiz. Whereas I say, actually, it was pretty much the whole coastline. So the thing about the Azores and the thing about the Canary Islands, which we have to keep in mind, and Cadiz, our location. Strategy. Whenever you're talking about, that's how far we are from each other. Look at that. 6,000.
We're also in exactly the same latitude.
Look at that. How cool.
I just got to say, I can make a claim for North Carolina. Okay. Here we go. We're going to make the North Carolina as Atlantis claim. Okay.
I love it.
So I hate how you can't. How do you turn this thing off? I hate it. Hold on. Boom. That did it. Okay. Just real quick, Michael. I got to get a pitch in for the Tar Heel steak. Okay. But see, it's at latitude 3519 right there. Let's call it 3557. So I am at latitude 3548. We're on the exact same latitude where I am as the pillar.
And actually, this is a good point.
What else do I have here?
It's a good
what else
point
does he have?
Because
I have an inland sea.
Oh, look at that!
See my inland sea?
How about them apples? Look at that.
At the exact same latitude.
I'm gonna have to go there when I visit. Man,
you got to go throw on the damn scuba gear and get out here and see what we can find. Now, it would have been a far-flung outpost. But it's directly across the pond.
I don't know if you're reading my mind, but I got to tell you, we talk about this in our third series. We talk about this, and here's what I'm gonna get to. Whenever you're talking about an empire, its capital city is always very strategic. Now, in ancient times, there was only 2 entrances and exits from and into the Mediterranean, right? So in ancient times, you could only get in and out of the Mediterranean from here, from Cadiz, or from the Nile Delta, even though now the Nile Delta has been filled with sediment and they had to build the Suez Canal. 12,000 years ago, the topography was completely different. And those two, and only those 2 places, would have been an in and out to the Mediterranean. What was the Mediterranean? What is the Mediterranean? It's one of the most
Hold on. I don't understand,
privileged.
Michael. Hold on. How do you get out of the, I'm sorry, and we got a little lag, but how do you get out of the Mediterranean via the Nile Delta?
Because that Nile
What do you
Delta
mean?
wouldn't even have existed. That was all
The-
open. And as you probably know, if you scroll down,
right.
you'll notice that and in
Yeah.
ancient times, the pyramids, including the Giza Plateau, that was all navigable. And it was
Hmm.
all open. Now they built the Suez Canal, but in ancient times, this would have been a point of entry.
But it would have been a point of entry for Ethiopians. But I mean, you can't go enter a sea if you go up the Nile, right?
Fayum used to be, it still is a small lake, but
Yeah.
people would navigate into Fayum during the flooded season. They would leave their
Oh,
boats
okay.
there, and then that whole thing
Yeah.
was a much bigger lake. So if you talk about
I see.
12,000
So
years
it would be
ago,
more like associated cities where you could take refuge and things like that. It would have been the redoubt of the Mediterranean. You can control the whole Med from these two areas. Is that
that's
fair?
my point. From those two, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. From
Yeah.
those two areas, you would have had
Yeah.
control of the entire Mediterranean. In fact, the thing that's interesting about the priests of Sais, when they're talking to Solon, is
Hmm.
they tell him, "You Greeks
Hmm.
don't know that we also are descended from these people." That's what's interesting about Solon's
The Egyptians
words.
said, okay.
The Egyptians, the ancient
Hmm.
priests of Sais, said to Solon that we are also descendants of these very same people. And they say to him, we also revere Heracles. That was very bizarre. I never imagined reading that an ancient priest of Egypt would have revered. But here's what I want to get to. If you control Cadiz, you control this
Hmm.
area, you control all trade and commerce in and out of the Mediterranean. Same with the other way around. That's why you have these
Hmm.
grand buildings that you find over there. And over here, the biggest difference, the biggest
Hmm.
challenge is the geography of this area. In this area, we're on the front
Hmm.
line of the Atlantic Ocean. So at any point that there's a tremendous cataclysmic event that is ocean bound or coming from the ocean,
Hmm.
our entire landscape is flattened out. We're very, very flat landscape. But then when you get to the
Hmm.
Sierra, which means the mountains, which are only a 20-minute drive from here, you find thousands
Oh, okay.
upon thousands of prehistoric caves, almost as if they were rudimentary
Okay.
dwellings made by people who were surviving some horrible disaster. So here's my point about you asked about the
Oh.
Azores. I want to get back to the Azores and the Canary Islands. These are often places, and North Africa, often places that have been attributed to Atlantis. When I hear the Azores, I usually, by the way, and I believe there are rests from the same civilization in all of these places. I know
Hmm.
it for a fact. When I hear people
Hmm.
talking about the Azores, naturally, having done my investigations and having read all of the books available on the subject, the first, if somebody tells me no, it's in the Azores, meaning the capital city, I right
Hmm.
away say, I'm sure there's tons of amazing stuff in the Azores. In fact, the Azores and the Canary Islands both appear in our fourth episode in great detail. So we know that there
Hmm.
was trade and commerce going on there, but we're not talking about the capital city. When I hear people talk about the capital city, as
Hmm.
described by Plato, when they say the Azores, I instantly know that they're big fans of our good pal Edgar Casey. Um,
Hmm.
because that was his theory. When people talk about the Canary Islands, lots of people have mentioned the Canary Islands. North Africa as well
Hmm.
would have, without a doubt, the Morocco that we have today is nothing like the Morocco of 11,000 years ago. In fact, the Berber people of Morocco are some of the oldest people in Morocco, many of whom have almost Celtic appearance with blue eyes, and
Hmm.
and so there was obviously a very different group of people. Now, here's the thing that is very important, and this is why I mentioned the Canary Islands and the Azores, is that the reason, by the way, where I live is where Christopher Columbus sailed out of. And that's not a coincidence.
Oh,
When,
really?
yeah, it's not a coincidence.
Huh.
Magellan and Christopher Columbus both sailed out of the very same village, town, city that I live in right now.
Yeah.
And the reason is because
Yeah.
back then, back in Columbus's time, the high-tech, super secret technology were navigation maps. So the house of the Dukes of Medina Sidonia, who are the rulers, have been they're the oldest monastic family in Europe who rule here, knew all of these maps. And Columbus knew that there were underwater rivers in the Atlantic, all underwater channels that pushed going towards the Canaries, and on the way back, the underground current pulled you towards the Azores. He knew about that, and ancient people knew about that. And in other words, it means that a connection between the Azores, the Canary Islands, and the mainland is extremely ancient. The only thing that is improbable, also based on what we've found, but improbable, strategically speaking, would be to place your capital city of an entire empire, especially if we know it ruled over all of the Mediterranean. Why would you put it so far as the Azores? You wouldn't. You would put a side.
That is an excellent point.
You wouldn't. It doesn't make
I'd
sense.
even add, Michael, that let's say Atlantis was located in the Azores and that was the capital city. They would have had quite an outpost to protect their most valuable dominion.
It doesn't
They'd
make
be
sense.
way out here with their capital
Doesn't
city.
make sense.
And at a very minimum, just looking at the opposite, they would have to set up a settlement here to take care of the Med, because you just can't do it out there. So obviously the conclusion might be that they actually headquartered here at the most strategic point is where you would keep your concentration, and God knows what they were doing elsewhere. Yeah.
Exactly. And if you
that
look
makes
at
complete sense.
it's not to diminish in any way the value of their potentially.
That's
and
right. No.
like for example, Malta, incredible place. And in fact, I'm going diving there in a couple days. Malta is, I believe, one of the other principal places. Sardinia as well. Sardinia would have been important, but Plato mentions that the 5 sets of twin sons that Poseidon and Cleito had, each was allotted his own island kingdom. And so if you have two over there, one over there, you're basically making sure that you're, what's the word when your family, it's all family members that work for you. What's that word?
Nepotism.
Talk about nepotism, but in a sense, it would make sense.
Nepotocracy.
Nepotocracy.
Yeah.
But I do believe, and we talk about this a lot in further on in our later episodes, that there absolutely was a connection with the Americas, because Plato even says, when you come out of the Straits of Heracles in the area of Gades, but not going as far as to cross the grand ocean to where we would get to the boundless continent. So when the Spanish conquistadors first arrived, when they first arrived in America, they said, holy smokes, Plato was right. He knew about this land. So just like Columbus knew about these underwater currents, I'm sure these ancient people knew about these underwater currents. So are there things from the same epoch in the Azores? Absolutely. Are there things from the same epoch in the Canary Islands? Absolutely. Even North Africa. Well, I'll get into North Africa later, but and I'm not talking about the structure, that beautiful structure, mesmerizing structure.
Rishat.
That's as mesmerizing as it is. It's absolutely not a city. It's
they overcool it. It's really cool, but
It's a
Hmm.
wonderful looking structure, but no, when I say North Africa, I don't mean Mauritania. I mean still on the coast of Morocco, we have Agadir, Gades. So we know
Hmm.
that even North Africa would have at some point. It's a wonderful structure, and I do talk about that, and I hope I don't dissuade your wonderful guests, but we have so many proof points that
No,
this is
man. If people
certainly
are,
not an ancient city.
yeah,
It's a beautiful
yeah,
structure.
yeah, I agree.
It's jaw dropping. It's jaw dropping, but it's just simply not a. Why would you if there's one of the if you zoom in on that and you look at the distance
Hmm.
between the average, if you want to call it canal, it's almost 10 kilometers from
Hmm.
edge of one canal to the other. Would the people have had to be
Hmm.
like 300 meters tall? It doesn't make any sense. The whole point
Hmm.
you build a canal
Yeah.
a city like Venezia or Venice with its canals, or like
Hmm.
Amsterdam, is so that they serve as highways for transportation of goods and people. And you're not going to make a
And
canal
no
that's
bigger.
10 kilometers.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't make any sense. I do, however, really think I know exactly what it is. And if it is what I think it is, it could well explain a lot of the destruction that went on. Um,
Without me
but yeah,
busting the without me busting any confidentiality and whatnot, I want you to do it. Could you describe the scans and what imagery have you taken of this
scans.
area? 5 clicks or so miles, I'm not sure, but off Cadiz,
Hmm.
what do you see
Hmm.
now? If people come to the Cosmic Summit at 9 p.m. on Saturday the 21st, or by the
Yeah.
live stream, the virtual pass, by the virtual pass, you will be the first to see what Michael has been studying for a decade now. What do you see down there?
Um, the hey, does the virtual pass? Can people record their screens? They can, can't they?
We'll work it out. We'll make it impossible.
Okay.
I
All
thought
right.
that might have
All
already.
right.
Y'all, we might have already ruled
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
out. I don't know. I kind of thought they did have access, but we're going to figure out something. Maybe we'll turn
Okay.
off the video and leave on the
So
audio.
so
Right? Okay, we'll figure
I'll
something out. Go ahead.
all right. So I'll explain briefly what we had found. What we had been finding between 2016 right the way up to 2022 was masses and masses. Well, we found, first of all, we found a cityscape that was only visible at low tide, only following a great big storm that happened in 2018 that by chance washed away a lot of sand. And what we ended up finding the first handful of years were the ruins of a very old city. When I say very old, it stretches out a couple kilometers onto this platform. So we thought to ourselves, well,
Hmm.
it could be anything from Roman, next to impossible, because the Roman structures are still exist, are found on top of them. What we were finding were the remains of submerged urban structures. So it was
Hmm.
clear that we were finding things in the water. We'd been diving the coastline, and as I said earlier, next to impossible to dive for the bad visibility and the currents. But we did, and we didn't stop there. And we kept finding
Hmm.
unbelievable, flat, rectangular, huge stones the size of a small car, perfectly cut. And we had
Hmm.
also done a geological investigation into a comparative analysis between what are found naturally occurring in this area quite often are striations that are caused by the African tectonic plate pushing down on the European tectonic plate. And we wanted to make sure we weren't
Hmm.
confusing, we weren't filming something. And what we were filming, what we found under the water was first with the sonar, run our boat across, and you would see beep, a wall, 7.5 meters
Hmm.
tall. And we're like, what is this? So we started diving there. And right from the first day diving there, we started to see, first of all, a huge wall that was about 7.5 meters tall, which is what, 30 feet, or just under 30 feet tall, about 2 meters wide, made up of cut, giant cut stones, megalithic stones. And you can tell...
Clearly appeared to be to me much better evidence for human manufacture or whatever than say the Bimini Road.
Completely.
And God knows people have been hooked on the Bimini Road for what, 50, 60 years.
Completely.
And this is
this
more clearly
was
human construction.
And every single time we went back, every time what we would do is we would start in the same spot, but let's say we went east. Well, this time we would go, south. Another time we would go north. And so we would always go in, starting from the same spot, and expand our search. And every single time we were finding more details that were absolutely indicative of manual construction. But the thing that led us to understand that it wasn't just an old port wall, because we thought, well, it could be just an ancient port wall, was when right away on the ground level, we found tons and tons of rubble and disaster of much smaller ruins, smaller walls that were, sort of more to the dimensions of wall today. And then various details that all showed indicative of different construction types. In other words, large wall, smaller buildings, houses, structures, columns, doorways. And so it meant that it was a settlement. It meant that it was a city. Now, what we didn't know, and we were trying to draft out by hand using our instrumentation, every time we swam, we were trying to understand what we were looking at. But our drafts didn't really look very good. And we decided to go in. We decided to go in with really top tech, and we went in with a multi-axis echo sounder, which is a machine that you stick on the back of your boat, and two poles go in the water, and they send out an echo beam, which comes back to the boat, and you troll the boat backwards and forwards for hours. We were on there 7 hours the first time. Yeah. And what it does on your screen is it starts to paint in a 3D topographical map of what the bottom of the ocean has. When I saw the final scan, when I saw the scan for the first time, I expected to see little rectangular ruins. No, it didn't occur to me that the scan was quite high up, and so we weren't getting we were getting a big view of everything, right? And when I saw that those giant 7-meter tall walls that seemed to never end were in fact curving, and then I saw a second one, and then a third one with canals in between, and then I realized that the rubble that we were seeing was crap that had been totally destroyed on the sides by some obviously from a seaborne impact, because it was all tumbled in northwards, right? So it means it came from the south. I thought, oh my God, holy crap, what is this? This is a freaking circular city. And I got on my phone and I called the guys and I said, did you guys see what I'm seeing? And we're all flipping out. Yeah. So when I saw that, and then Eureka. And then imagine on this screen here, which I've got this humongous, this huge screen. I had the scan open down to the centimeter, and I was going in and I was looking at these other things and measuring, and before you know it, we're finding the most incredible thing was it showed, like Plato said, an upper Acropolis area, in the center of which we have the ruins of several giant structures, one of which measures half a stadium by effectively one stadium, which is the same. I mean, I couldn't make this stuff up. I couldn't make it up. It's the same dimensions as what he gives.
You didn't make it up. It's in the film.
It's in the film.
People see it. I mean, it's clear as a bell what's going on.
It's and so.
Well, I was watching it with a buddy. I was watching it with a buddy, kind of some, new to these issues, right? Or not new to these subjects last night, watching the final one. And, and I already shared some of his other critiques, earlier.
Yeah.
But one thing he said is, and he was wrong on this front, kind of, he said, well, if, that thing's so obvious, why haven't they found it yet?
That's a wonderful
Which
question.
I guess to the uninitiated, well, hold on. Let me kind of give my take on this. I said, no, buddy Jay. I said that no, that lends credibility to it, because had those structures 5 miles off Cadiz already been known, oh, well, that's the circular temple of Pythagoras or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And even if it was Atlantis, if it had already been known and somebody had labeled it as something and somebody said, oh, that's Byzantine or whatever the hell it is,
Right.
you'd be in a fix, because you'd be relabeling something that had already been labeled Atlantis.
Totally.
And
No,
you'd be
no,
nowhere. No, these structures confirm for me. These structures are not noted in any archaeology, marine or otherwise, right?
I'm going to give you an amazing answer to why they haven't been found.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you were to, the first thing that you have to, it's all about knowing this landscape. If you look at aerial satellite shots of the opening of the Guadalquivir River, which is where we are, you'll see a huge cloud, a huge area which is just silt from the river. So from here all the way past Cadiz in Conil, the water is very, very, very murky. So if you see where the river goes in there in the center, I suppose you can't really see it all that well here. In our drone shots, you can really see right there where the exit of the river is.
Yeah. No.
But what happens here is that Google reassigns the ocean with just a blue color.
I get it.
Really
No, it's silt's been pouring out of there for thousands of years.
A very difficult place to
silts
dive.
up the whole bay.
However, I've got a funny story about this. So, when I first started, my dive team and our scanning crew at Prisma Scanning, and they're all wonderful guys. They're great friends of mine. Rafa, Donato, Boris, Eugenio, Tete, all of these guys that I've been diving with for the last several years here. Great divers. And they're the first to tell you how you could dive these waters, you could dive anywhere. This area gets hit by tsunamis regularly. And every 600 years, there's a pretty darn big one. The last major one was in 1755 during the earthquake of Lisbon, which killed... Now that shockwave caused a series of tsunamis that hit our coast here and killed a bunch of people. Now I've got this great story. During that time in 1775, there were locals that said that when the waters suddenly started to retreat. They'd never seen that before. And they said when the waters retreated, we saw a city appear. So people have been here. People have seen this before, even though I know my friend Rafa Donato is the first person who registered his find back 12 years ago, but he didn't know what it was. But he registered it. But there are people, like there was an old fisherman. If you saw the second episode, there's an old fisherman who used to take us out to this one wonderful place called Salmedina Island. One day he took me to, it was years before I dove there. He said, listen, when I was a kid, there was one day of clear water and I saw this something under there and I dove in and I saw this wall. So even though even though our team is the first person to recognize that this is a city and to register it, there's been little hints of old fishermen throughout the ages knowing that there was something there.
Yeah.
So it's
In the rare moments where it would reveal itself.
it's been, in a sense, it would have been found eons ago if the water was any clearer. It would have been found eons ago.
What does geology say to get 60 meters of water? At what time period does that put
60 feet, so it's 20
its
meters.
submersion? It could have submerged at the Younger Dryas, for instance, and it would have been 600
Okay.
feet. So they would have been several hundred feet above. Yeah.
No. Well, I think that it's important to keep in mind.
When
this,
would it have last been visible?
this is what we have to keep in mind. Geology is not as cut and dry as all that. This coastline has been, what I mean by that last comment is that, for example, many of the geological records that first started emerging were back in the 60s, 70s, when pipeline companies started to drill. I think it was in the Gulf of Mexico, and it was wonderful because all of a sudden geologists had these miles of tubes of of sedimentary material
Yeah.
that they could study. So the problem with that is that it uses the presumption that everything happened all over the planet in the same way and the same time. It didn't. So we have to keep in mind that geological records serve a great purpose, but the Earth is a lot more organic than we give it credit for. It's not a graph. So moving forward from that statement, the geological records that have been conducted in this area, for something to be at 20, or as we said earlier, maybe even 30 meters in terms of its depth, which would be 100 feet in this area, because what we have in this area is a very flat shelf that's not very deep, and it goes out for kilometers, and then it drops down. So the geological records of this area indicate that for that to have been above water, it would have been minimum 10,000 years ago. Minimum 10,000 years ago. And that is that's the most exciting part. The thing about the geological data that we have for our discovery, as compared to Phoenician ruins, which are found in Cadiz. Phoenician ruins going back 3,000 years or thereabouts, 2,500 years, 3,000 years. There were two waves of Phoenicians, so we have to discern which ones. They're at about 2.5, 3 meters, right? So it's a fraction of what we're talking about. So things, for example, in this area, if you're looking for structures under the earth, but this again is not always 100% under the earth, you'd have to dig 7.5 meters to get to the Chalcolithic period, right? So prehistoric. So in the water, it's more than at the right depth to be that ancient. More than at the right depth. And a general investigation of the architectural style excludes it from being anything more recent. It's certainly not Roman. It's certainly not Phoenician. Could it be Tartessian? Because the Phoenicians were, as I'm sure you know, they weren't indigenous here. The Phoenicians were essentially very good sailors and traders from all over the Mediterranean. But the indigenous people, the local people of Iberia, southern Iberia at that time or earlier, for thousands of years earlier, were the Tartessians, who are generally attributed as being most likely the descendants of the survivors of the people from Atlantis. It gets pretty interesting, doesn't it?
Wow. Man,
it all ties in.
We truly are. This is going to be so much fun.
It's cool, man.
It does.
Cool.
And it's just damn perfect for the Cosmic Summit, man.
Oh, well done. You know, there's some
we couldn't
people
ask
there.
for a better partnership here. It's going to be
Oh,
fun.
well done. there's some people that I've been really looking forward to meeting, and I hope to be able to meet them there this year. So and another thing too, George, one of the things which you probably know, we've been presenting this, like we have millions of views and followers from the Spanish world. So we've had podcasts and conferences and radio shows all over Spain. Like I get stopped all the time. Hey, when's the Atlantis? Hey, when's the Atlantis thing coming out? So
really? Okay, it's caught on over there.
It's super big deal here. Yeah, no, it's a big deal here. What I'm excited about is,
damn, I want to go to Spain with you, man. Let's hang out this fall.
I haven't been able to present it to an American audience so far, and that's what's cool about this. And then with COVID and all that, nobody was traveling, and I just focused on finishing this thing up, and so I never ended up. The last time I was back was 6 years ago. So, So this is going to be cool. Oh, really?
You haven't been back to the States in 6 years, huh?
Yeah, the last time I was 6 years ago.
I'll be damned. Hey, tell me about the reception that it's received. I mean, the Cadiz Film Festival thought it was quite. They gave you a 10-minute ovation or something like that.
10-minute standing ovation. It's I'll tell you something that's just been unbelievable.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's really because people first of all who take the time to see it are usually people who really want to know about this stuff. And so this is also
like our crowd.
Yeah, and this is also the first time that I could say that a team has actually found something. I know what it is. But I always say, just for the sake of argument, if it's not Atlantis, it's even more interesting because it fits everything.
Yeah. I get that kind of formulation.
Everything Plato says is everything we have here. And so people who tend to go watch it are people who have done at least a little reading on it, and they flip out because they go, I knew it. It's a humbling experience. It's you do a lot of things wrong in your life. That's part of growing up. But when you feel that you've done something, and I've really, man, it's not been easy, man. I've put my sweat, blood, and tears into this thing.
Oh no. The good things are never easy. Oh,
never, man. This has been something else, my friend. And just having people.
Yeah. You got to push the rock up the hill, man.
You do, yeah. And to have people see it and love what we're finding and doing is, wow. There's just, it's the one thing that makes me want to keep going with this thing. And we are going to keep going with this thing.
Hell yeah,
it's just really cool, man.
Oh, what was just coming to mind? Gosh, I had another couple of questions, but just back to kind of, promoting the Cosmic Summit, if you will, okay, which I've got to do in every podcast. I can't be a pure podcast. I have these pecuniary interests, right?
Sure.
And so I want to sell tickets.
Yeah.
So we're going to work out, hopefully, hey, do you think we can have the audio feed? If we work out something, do you think we could live stream? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you think we could live stream the audio or cut out the video at some key point?
That's absolutely fine. It's real simple. It's real simple. I don't want the imagery coming out before it needs to come out. If you noticed in the little teaser I put together a quick little teaser on Instagram of promoting the Cosmic Summit, into which, if you pause it, if you look real carefully,
thank you.
I've got a quick 1 second of the scan. But that's just between you and I. I just want that to be, that reveal. That reveal is something that I saved for the juicy bits, for the sale. And we're almost on the verge of announcing the platform. It's been in distribution now for a while, but because it's an international project, it has to be all over the world. It's been taking a little bit more time to position it. But when it does come out, I want people to watch it and go, holy shit, I can't believe it. They freaking found it.
Yeah. And I think it's going to have that effect. But listen, that's great news. So you already have been working distribution and you've already got somebody
Oh
on the
yeah.
hook?
Oh yeah. So there's a few things
Oh,
coming out
great, man.
soon, which is distribution. Also,
Hmm.
and when it does, about a month before it comes out, all those little details that I told you about, like the sound and everything, it's going to be perfected.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah,
Hmm.
distribution, and then we announced the second series, and the second series and the third series is going to be really cool. Because what we did with the first, I think what we've done so far is we've been able to we I'm not going to name names. There's a lot of documentary. I love documentaries. That's why I make them. But I came from the world of feature films.
Yeah, I do too, man.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
documentaries. There's so many on so many different things, and they're cool, and they're open to all
Hmm.
ideas. And so documentaries are really a new world of excitement, I think.
Hmm.
It seems the general trend,
No, it's a
movies.
golden age of
It's a
documentaries right
golden
now.
age.
Yeah.
Movies tend to be going
Uh-huh.
like this. Documentaries tend to be going like
They
this.
are.
And
That's right.
I think that why am I saying this? I lost track. I lost track. We were talking about
I just remembered what I wanted to bring up.
what was it? What was it? Oh,
I
the
wanted to bring,
sound.
we've
The
got
sound.
two reveals that day.
You got two
Yeah, go
reviews.
ahead.
Yeah, yeah. No, you got. Yeah, tell me. Tell me. You got two
Well, that's what I
reveals.
wanted to talk to you about, man. We got two reveals that day. Yeah, coming on, Saturday the 21st, the first day of the summit. And I think both of them are damn global newsworthy, and we'll see
That's
if we
brilliant.
get attention. But if not, even better for the audience because they're going to be the only people to know some pretty damn important
Is
information about our human past.
are
But
you
it,
referring to
but at
your?
1:30,
Yeah.
yeah, the
Is it?
Caffrey scan scientists who scanned under Caffrey from space,
I'm
who
looking
were,
forward to talking to them because
derided and well,
I, if
you're
you
damn
ever,
right, man, because it's both remote sensing reveals.
dude, I have my first language is Italian. I grew up in Italy, and I wouldn't mind.
Oh,
And
is
I'm
it?
yeah, and so I like to talk to these guys. It'd be interesting.
Dude, how about this? How
Let's.
about you play interpreter if needed?
You got it.
Okay.
You got it.
Okay. And these guys speak pretty good English and they might make it through. But if they want to bust into some Italian and say, how do you say this? I'd like you to be available on stage and at the press conference.
You got it.
Fuck yeah, man.
Fuck yeah,
Do you
man.
know Jay? Have you come across Jay? Yeah. Yeah, we're tying it together, brother. Okay, but listen, here's how that's going to go down at 1:30. Filippo Biondi and Armando May are going to take the stage at 1:30, and Jay Anderson of Project Unity. If you're not aware of Jay, go follow him, subscribe.
Okay.
He's going to host kind of their presentation, introduce them,
Oh,
do
well
some
done.
Q&A, et cetera, and so forth. Yeah, and I'd like you to be up there to assist with interpretation.
Perfect. Be awesome.
I
And
think that'd be very cool. And you
since
might
I
even be able
know.
to help with some question formulation. Yeah.
Sure. And of course, it's obviously going to be there,
Mhm.
and the last thing I want to do is interfere. I'll act as a fun interpreter. But if they want me to
Yeah.
intervene as a conversation now and again, it would also be my pleasure,
Mhm.
without in any way
Absolutely, man.
deterring from what they're presenting.
Sure. No. We love it. It's all a collaborative thing. And by the way, if you post on Instagram, try the collaborative thing with Cosmic Summit, and we'll go collaborative to you, and it'll go to our audience too. Just
Perfect.
FYI, a little program note,
I wanted to
right?
ask
Just look up
you.
collaborative Instagram post.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. No, yeah, I've been doing that. I did that with my last video with you guys. I
Yeah.
did
Okay. Send us a collab
I will.
request.
I will. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you something.
Mhm.
Just a question, and I asked David this. I said, well,
Mhm.
the day that we do our debate thing, um,
Mhm.
should we send the our version with a password to whoever might be present, so they could see it beforehand, or no?
Oh, I think absolutely.
It's just
I
a
think
thought.
absolutely.
It was just a thought. You like
No,
that?
no, 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 no. And they're all
Okay.
cool characters. And what
Okay.
what Michael's speaking of, folks, is that on Monday, we have a separately ticketed day for a deep dive classroom day. Okay, and you can stay an extra day, and it's a hell of an extra day, and it ends in a big old party, man.
Well, I can.
Okay, but stay an extra day, and you've got 6 different classrooms where you go for 2.5, 3 hours with whoever the speaker is, and that
Brilliant.
who's handling it. So it's a subset. Yeah. So there's 6 different, we call them classrooms. That like Randall Carlson leads one on sacred geometry. Ben Van Kerkwick leads one on Egypt. Yeah, Scott Walter and Tim Hogan lead one on the Templars, the Masons, and the connection to Atlantis. And then there is the Younger Dryas Impact Hypothesis, the Comet Research Group, who are the PhDs that have defined the catastrophe. They're going to have a classroom, and there's the Atlantis debate. Okay, there's also Bob Grenier in Breakthrough Technology.
Well,
but just so people know, the Atlantis debate, yeah, will include yourself. Oh gosh, let me see. Graham Dunlop of Grimerica. Boy, it's always shitty when you don't know your own stuff this way.
I've been looking forward to meeting Randall Carlson and Robert Schock.
You damn right, man.
Man, I'm really looking forward to meeting some of these people.
Yeah, classroom day. Yeah, oh God, it's great. And there's a lot of cross-pollination.
Absolutely.
Right? So the Atlantis debate, you're right up at the top. So we got Dan Richards, right? D-Dunk Dan, man, one of the best critical thinkers in the unconventional history space. Dr. Danny Hillman, who has revealed the mystery of Gedong Padang to the world. And that is a fantastic, high-class archaeologist, a great gentleman who has been 100% suppressed by his government.
Fucking A.
In his valuable work, has ground to a halt because he's probably right.
Yep.
Oh, it does, man. And then of yourself, Michael Donnellan of Atlantica. And then my buddy, I love this guy, man. He's a perfect guy to represent Rishat. David Stig Hansen, right? A guy who, scrapes together lunch money, gets the cheapest flight he can to get to North Africa, rents a camel or a buggy and goes out to the Rishat structure. And I think he's done it 3 times. But just solo. I'm going to go to the Rishat structure.
He believes that what does he say about it?
No. He believes it's Atlantis. We'll see. And then Grimerica's Graham Dunlop is just a fantastic podcast host. And what we're going to do is talk about, kind of debate the location, toss ideas back and forth, perspectives and whatnot. And then we're going to actually kind of divide the room up and say, okay, who thinks it's here? Who thinks it's there? Whatnot. So yeah, there might be winners and losers in this thing. Okay. And I'm kind of, y'all, you could guess what my bet is.
It's just,
okay.
we've done,
debate.
I've got a question for you. The reality is I've studied the Rishat structure fairly in depth, and it's and this you don't have you can be editing this podcast, so or is it all going to come out?
Yeah, we can.
It's just I don't want to.
It's been pretty good, so it doesn't need editing yet.
No. I the thing about the Rishat structure, and it's
oh, no, go at it, man. That's fine.
Okay.
Listen, if they can't take the heat, get the hell out of the kitchen. You don't get an Atlantis debate unless somebody can call bullshit on you.
As mesmerizing and beautiful as it is, it's so quick and easy to determine that it's not what Plato was talking about. In fact, there's many ways it could be completely annihilated. But the thing about it, with my own,
it's a square peg in a round hole. But you gotta like Stig Hansen going out and
But no, and I think that's fantastic. And by the way, despite making that statement I just made, I have to be as honest as when I say it is absolutely a mesmerizing structure. No question about it. I know that they did. They said they did some testing to try to find iridium deposits to try to. Then there were people trying to say that it was a giant lava dome bubble, right? 60 kilometers across. Okay, sure, that makes sense. And then they tried to rule out that it was a meteorite impact. I don't think it was a meteorite. I think it was a comet, a low density, mostly dirty water object with a hard nucleus, and I think that
Hmm.
one could tell from different points that there's something that's suggestive of it being a blast impact site. If you notice that Rishat structure happens to be at the epicenter of what we call the sand belt, which begins as the concentration of the Sahara Desert, then it goes through the Middle East, it goes through India, Gobi Desert, all of that, until it eventually fades out like watercolor paint. So what that shows is that something, and here's the irony. The irony is the Sahara Desert was geologists seem to concur with this, that it was generally formed about 10,000 years ago. And strangely, so was
Surprise.
and strangely, so was on the other side of the frickin' planet was the Amazon jungle, right? The rainforest. That's also only 10,000 years old.
About
So
10,000 years.
two landscapes that are pretty much the opposite from each other, formed at the same time. That's a clue. That's a very interesting clue. How about an idea that's more plausible? Because the Rishat structure simply is not a city. It's not a city. It's not Atlantis. It's certainly not the capital city of Atlantis that Plato was talking about. I can see, here's another detail. I can see from my house on a clear day, I can see the Atlas Mountains right on the other side, right? From my house, from where our discoveries were made, we see the Atlas Mountains. From the Rishat structure,
That's interesting. Yeah.
you don't see, they're farther away. You don't have a direct line of sight to the same peaks that I can see from my house. Another thing is, and I go back to
Very
this,
interesting. You can see the North African mountains from Spain.
everything Plato says, down to every single detail, belongs to Cadiz. Every detail that he talks about is here. Any place that veers away from Plato's description of the capital city, as mesmerizing as it may be, falls outside of what he's talking about. Another thing about the Rishat structure.
Yeah, well, I think people generally listen. That was clickbait Atlantis reshot. You know, it started with Jimmy Corsetti, and God bless Jimmy for bringing attention to the thing. But it's like, Jimmy
on YouTube. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, hey, let's do this. Let's close out. I should have done. Hold on just a sec. Should have done this from the beginning, or perhaps at the beginning, but it might have bored people. It'd have been too much. But let's play the trailer. I'd like to play your trailer. It's beautiful. It'll give people, hopefully they'll go look at it themselves, so it's not secondhand as this will be. But I'm going to go ahead and roll your trailer. It's 1 minute and 30 seconds long, and I'm going to start it right now.
If anyone had told me 6 years ago that we would go in search of Atlantis, I would have said they were crazy. And yet, here we are, knowing what we know. Not a myth, not a legend. Atlantis was real. The lost empire Plato described in such precise detail actually existed. I have seen these structures with my own eyes. I have touched them with my own hands. These years of field research are about to write a whole new chapter in human history. They will help resolve those eternal questions of where we came from and how we got here. Pinpointing the exact location of Atlantis was to be just the beginning. What I knew then and what I know now, well, see for yourself.
Hell yeah, man. Sent chills through me.
Well done. Well done.
Nice, man. Yeah, that give people a taste of what's to come right there, brother, right? Damn, I got a little chill in me, man. It's just a great work. It's right up our
Thank
alley.
you,
We
brother.
cannot wait to welcome you to Greensboro. It is not as mysterious and exotic as Cadiz, but it's got its own charms, and it's going to be fantastic. I want to remind people
Very
that
good.
really the great opportunity to participate this at an affordable price is using the promo 3CAMs and purchasing the virtual pass. If you use the number 3 CAMS 3CAMs, it'll go from 75 to $50. And there are not many 45-hour content video on demand you can buy for $50. And these stay with you. This is not, you better watch it live or you miss it kind of thing. No, on the app, it will always give you access to the summit. And we named the promo 3CAMs that gets you from $75 to $50. We named it 3CAMs because you're going to get more than the audience is. In a sense, they're going to just be seeing the speakers. We're going to be having a cosmic news desk, as we're calling it. And Jay Anderson's going to help man that with me and Beckett Fusick. And we're going to be interviewing speakers in kind of informal manner and interesting featured guests like yourself and even audience members and kind of bringing them by the table and talking. So that camera will be available to the virtual pass holders, as well as we're going to do these little meta glasses things. So we're actually going to have a roving eyeball and Mike moving around the thing, and I'll put the glasses on sometimes, and Beckett put the glasses. We'll hand them around, but they'll always be on, and you'll be able to access that. I think that's cool as hell for $50. And you'll also see a promo code down in the see more description below this YouTube that will get you 10% off the in-person passes. And make sure, if you're going to come, and please do this. I think has a very special vibe to it. I think we defined the tremendous revelations that we can expect to be made at the summit. It's worth coming and being in person and maybe telling your grandkids you were there to see the Coffray scan round 2 that puts it over the edge, and the discovery of the true Atlantis, both on June 21st. If you come in person, you're in the audience, and you're going to see that. There'll be a promo code down below that you can get 10% off the in-person tickets. And if you do come in person, make sure to tell the hotel that you are with the Cosmic Summit, and you will receive a very substantial discount on a luxury hotel room, $179. It's the largest hotel in North Carolina, and it's family owned, and they're good friends, and they treat us with great hospitality, the Corey family. So that's June 20th to 23rd. And our guest, Michael Donnellan here, the producer and star of Atlantica, will be premiering, as we have been detailing, his docuseries in a condensed form that evening at 9 o'clock. So we're going to have a reveal at 1:30 and a reveal at 9 o'clock. What's under the pyramids and where the fuck is Atlantis, respectively. So that's a pretty big day of new information, man. So get the virtual pass, get the day pass, come meet Michael. Look at that handsome devil. Are you married, Michael?
I am.
Are you married?
Yeah, my wife.
I was going to lay one out for the ladies. Come meet
my wife, my girlfriend and I. We're not married yet, but she's from Spain. You make me sweat now.
Oh, okay. That's key information.
If I don't say I'm married, she'll beat me. These Andalucían women, man.
Yeah, I bet you when you get that distribution contract, you're going to get. Yeah, that's the watershed for that. That is great, man. That is great.
I could just see a brick
with you.
I
Real
could just
quick.
see a
It's
brick
not
flying
just you.
through the window.
Yeah,
David's
exactly.
David's gonna be coming with me. My manager David, who works with us. We've got a great team.
Yeah.
So it's David is coming out there with
He
me.
sure did.
He's arranged. I'm good at certain things, but I'm the first to admit when I'm not good at other things, and just managing my time. He does a bitchin' job with it,
Yeah.
man. So he's coming out there with me, and not only to help, but the guy's brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and he's actually a journalist as well, very good journalist. And we met when he first interviewed me, and then he started working with us. So. So he's very excited about this whole thing.
That's
as
awesome,
I am.
man.
I
he
can't
took a
wait.
true, genuine, sincere interest in this and helped out. He did things like track me down and bug me by email until I paid attention to the best thing offered this year.
He's unbelievable. Yeah. He really is a resourceful guy, and I won't forget. He told me, he said, "Listen, I've got this idea. the cosmic summit. I think I've got this idea. And every time he said that,
Oh no!
I just appeared on a I'll call him the Joe Rogan of Spain, a lovely guy called Jordi Wild.
Yeah.
And he's basically follows Joe Rogan's formula, and he has different guests on his show all the time. And we just did that a couple months ago, and it's had a few million views. So that's all David's work, setting all that up.
Oh, I got to go watch that, man.
It's cool. It's cool.
Okay,
I think
well, people
it'll
check that out too. And you know, speaking of Joe Rogan, we got a little Rogan news for the Cosmic Summit.
Oh,
Not
good.
the news that I would like, but who knows? Can't rule it out. But and I should repeat that Luke Caverns, who has been at the last two summits, was at the last minute. It turned out his flight back from the jungle after his research assignment lands him in Greensboro Friday night, so he was able to make the Cosmic Summit. He didn't get on the speakers because all that was filled up. So our old friend Luke Caverns is going to be coming to the summit. The reason I bring it up is by the time this airs, say 2 or 3 days, he will, so I'm not doing a spoiler here, he will have appeared on Joe Rogan because they're filming tomorrow. They're recording
cool.
tomorrow. So that'll be the 5th Cosmic Summit speaker that has been on Joe Rogan. By God, one day
That's wicked.
we will be blessed with the presence of Joe himself. Yeah,
I'll
and
imagine. It's right up his
God,
alley.
they'd love to have you guys on, man. Hopefully
Yeah.
they'll catch wind of it.
Yeah,
It's
that'd be
always
cool.
gone kind of in one ear. He's had it. I even met him, you know.
Yeah.
I brought it up with him. Could you come to the summit? It was before the first one. It went in, you know, in one ear and out the other, which is not to be unexpected when you're a global star.
Yeah, he's
But
amazing.
at some point, it's going to catch on with him. He's going to realize that we're getting the fan base for his ideas in a room together. And it's not the Joe Rogan redo event.
No,
it just happens to be. That's what we're interested in. He's interested in it. And we've got 5 of his previous guests that'll be speaking. So that's really exciting, including Luke Caverns.
That's awesome.
So heads up, people, on that. And Michael Donnellan, I can't thank you and your team enough, buddy.
It's been an absolute pleasure, George. Thanks for having me. And I'm really looking forward to this Cosmic Summit 2025. And I'm looking forward to contributing, especially with all these exciting people
Yeah,
that
man,
are going
you
to
are
be there.
contributing to it.
Thank you.
It's going to be a monumental and epic evening. And so everybody go to cosmicsummit.com. Go ahead and buy a pass now and come meet Michael Donnellan and team.
Awesome.
Not to mention a bunch of other exciting people. Just remember, if oh Lord, I busted my thing. Oh yeah. If one of these people is right, vast swaths of history has been told to you wrong, right? All it takes is just one of these people. So one of them's right. So if you're in the room at the Cosmic Summit, you're ahead of the game, right? And you're on the cutting edge of understanding what really happened in the past. I got a feeling a lot more than one of them are right. That's all it takes to change our understanding of human history. Thank you very much, Michael Donnellan. We'll see you a month
George.
from today.
See you a month from today. Take care, George. Thank you. Okay.
Yes, sir. You too. Bye.
Bye.